Hi, I'm Michelle Bijkersma and I present the Logical Fallacies segment of the Skeptic Zone. So keeping in theme, I'm going to highlight some important ways that we can use critical thinking to buoy ourselves through the current COVID-19 pandemic. Firstly, be aware of the slippery slope fallacy, where we reject a course of action because, despite a lack of evidence to the contrary, we think it will lead to a chain of events culminating in something bad. It's important that although some very negative things are going to happen, that we don't catastrophise or worry about things that actually may never happen. The false dilemma fallacy is also one we should keep in mind. Rarely do we find ourselves in a strict either-or position. Most scenarios do not comprise two diametrically opposing sides, but have many shades of grey. Black and white thinking will prevent us from being able to assess possibilities along a continuum and squander our chances of reframing issues in new ways. While the pandemic is indeed very scary, there will also be innovation and opportunities arising as a result, so look out for those. Others to watch out for are the correlation equals causation fallacy, the hasty generalisation fallacy, the anecdotal evidence fallacy, and so many more. They are too numerous to mention. However, one thing we know is that scepticism and critical thinking are paramount in these times, and we should be drawing on the vast array of resources they have given us while continuing to support those who make that possible for us. And let's not forget our compassionate, caring, generous side and support each other through this crisis until we come out the other side.
Welcome to the Skeptic Zone, the podcast from Australia for science and reason.
Yes, it's the Skeptic Zone podcast, episode number 597 for the 22nd of March 2020. Richard Saunders coming to you this week from Sydney, Australia. And thank you to our new reporter Michelle Bijkersma for that little message at the top of the show. In the coming weeks, you'll hear some more messages from our reporters all around the world. And I must admit, I did put a very difficult proposition to them all. I said, please send in a message we can play to our listeners, an encouraging message in these hard times. And the message back from them to me was, what do we say? Well, what does anybody say at the moment? I guess the best we can do here at the Skeptic Zone is keep the show going. Keep the show going so you can be hopefully entertained and informed. So, coming up on this week's show, I speak to somebody else who keeps you entertained and informed, Brian Dunning from Skeptoid, the Skeptoid podcast. Now, he made all the back catalogue of Skeptoid free for everybody. Until recently, it's only been premium members who can enjoy listening to the more than 700 episodes of Skeptoid. Well, in these hard times, Brian has made the whole back catalogue free. I chat to him about that. And also we look at some COVID-19 conspiracy theories, which there are many, and no doubt there will be many, many, many more in the years to come. Following that, it's news from our friends at the Good Thinking Society in the UK about their ongoing battles with homeopathy. And I report about some practitioners here in Australia of applied kinesiology and homeopathy making, well, diplomatically, I could say, making very bold statements about COVID-19. And that is being diplomatic. When you hear the report, you will wonder why I am being so diplomatic. Maybe I haven't had enough coffee yet. Be wary, be warned, be careful of dodgy advice coming from alt medicine about COVID-19. Then it's the welcome return of the Book of Tim Mendham, the executive officer and the editor of the Skeptic magazine here in Australia, dropped by the studio the other day And we recorded quite a lot of new episodes of the Book of Tim. This week, part 1 of a 3-part series about the time, almost 7 years ago, Australian skeptics tested water divining. Then to round off the show, Maynard comes back with more interviews from Skepticon 2019. This week, Maynard talks to one of the attendees, Catherine, about her experiences with the anti-vax crowd, Eran, Segev, Bob Novella, and the entertainer Conspiracy of One. Yes, we're all in for a bumpy ride. I think it does us well to keep pondering the future when better days will come, and they will come back again. And I hope shows like the Skeptic Zone and Skeptoid and other skeptical podcasts can keep you at least entertained while you're confined to your homes or whatever you're doing. Please stay tuned at the end of the show for an important message from me. But now it's time for me to run downstairs, make myself some onion soup, and what? Oh, all the onions have gone. Okay, run downstairs, wash my hands, make myself some potato and leek soup. Yeah? Okay. While I do that, I hope you enjoy the Skeptic Zone. Joining me now on the line, all the way from the beautiful city of Bend in Oregon, from Skeptoid, it's Brian Dunning. Hello, Brian.
Hello, Richard. How are you, sir?
Actually, getting by. You know, we're all coping. I think we're all coping as best as we can. It's bizarre times. And we were just chatting a moment ago. You and I and the population of the planet has never seen anything quite like this.
Yeah, it's I mean, the only thing I can compare it to is 9/11. How everything was closed down. There was, no civilian or commercial air traffic for 3 whole days, which was very strange in the United States. And, people were stuck all over the world. People couldn't get back. It's the only thing I can think of that's even close to just how weird the atmosphere is.
Yeah, and that eventually settled down, but we don't have a true end date, which is a little bit frightening.
I really thought that this was going to last 2 weeks, that the lockdowns were going to be 2 weeks. And now 2 weeks into that, they're really starting to impose the big lockdowns with whole college campuses being closed down, cities being closed down, curfews being imposed. Our governor here just ordered all businesses closed except for pharmacies and supermarkets. It's really strange times.
It's strange times, and everybody around the world listening to this can absolutely identify with what we're saying, because for the first time, maybe it's the first time in the history of our species, the whole world is battling the one enemy. It's remarkable.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. You're right. Everyone has a common enemy right now.
Everyone has a common enemy. It's going to be interesting to see what societal changes that will bring. But the reason I'm contacting you is because a couple of days ago on my Facebook feed, up popped a notice from Skeptoid. You've made the entire back catalogue of Skeptoid, over 700 episodes, free for everybody to download. What prompted that?
Well, just the situation with so many people being self-quarantined or social distancing or whatever you want to call it, being stuck at home. We thought, gee, what is there anything that Skeptoid can reasonably do? And clearly it was that. And there's a number of reasons for that. First of all, it gives people one more way to be entertained and pass the time. But second of all, Skeptoid is all about critical thinking. And with a new coronavirus conspiracy theory in the news every hour and a new quack cure coming out, this was a way to get some really quick, easily accessible critical thinking information into more people's hands. So yeah, we just opened up the entire catalog to everyone. Normally, premium members who are supporters of the program can access the whole catalog, but most people, it's just the most recent 50 episodes, which is more than enough for most listeners to any podcast. But so now anyone who wants to, you can come to the website, skeptoid.com, search for whatever the topic is that you're interested in, and listen to all the episodes unlimited. So we thought it was a good idea to do. It was something that we were able to do, and the response has been very positive to it.
I think it's marvelous. I really do in these hard times because, to be frank with all our listeners out there, you and I rely heavily on the kindness and the patronage of our listeners to get our shows up and running and keep going. And in these tough times, I know a lot of people will have to carefully think about what they spend their money on. So for you to make everything available to subscribers and non-subscribers alike, I think that says a lot. But talking about conspiracies and quack cures, and we're talking about some quack advice a bit later on in the show in the next segment. But you're right, and I'm hardly surprised that there are conspiracies popping up right, left, and centre. One of the ones that was brought to my attention by our reporter, Michelle Bijkersma, is that the real reason this whole pandemic is happening is so they can clear out pubs, offices, schools, etc. to install 5G towers or relay stations.
Yeah. Yeah, I had heard that. I actually went on the radio here in Oregon last week to talk about coronavirus conspiracy theories, and this one was brand new at the time that coronavirus, COVID-19, the disease doesn't exist, and it's just a hoax to cover up 5G syndrome, that everyone's actually who's dying and getting sick, they're actually dying from 5G cell phone signals. And this new one that you just mentioned, I only heard about that one today.
Yeah.
That it's just a hoax to get people off the street so that the evil government can install the 5G. But it's... and I know I have personal experience that these are being widely believed because I've had family members, personal friends, a guy right here in town who texts me every 5 minutes, all believing this thoroughly and calling me and asking me about it and expecting me to confirm that that's in fact true and being very surprised when I say, no, it's not. So no matter, you cannot come up with a wild enough conspiracy theory that a lot of people aren't going to believe it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, it's in all the years you and I have been doing this, I know what you're saying is very true. You cannot come up with something too crazy. Now, you covered 5G not so long ago on Skeptoid, didn't you?
Yeah, talking about, I mean, it's the same, it's the same thing that comes out every time there's a new, we had it with smart meters. The electrical meters or utility meters at your house that transmit their data so that the utility gets better, faster, cheaper, more granular information. It's genuinely a good thing for everyone. And people are protesting it. Why? Well, because it uses radio. This idea that radio is harmful to people is just, it's astoundingly wrong. And anyone listening to this, you've heard the science. You're familiar with the science behind this and why 5G can't hurt anyone or why any other sort of radio signals can't hurt anyone. Anything that's below the ionizing radiation limit, kind of right at the top of ultraviolet light on the visible spectrum, anything that's below that simply doesn't interact with human tissue, and so it has no potential to do any harm. It cannot cause any chemical changes in the body. So and we have literally the entire history of the human race to prove this to us, because the greatest source of radio of all, of course, is the sun. And the radio signals from the sun aren't hurting us. The highest frequency of those, visible light, those certainly don't hurt us. We go out and we look through visible light every day. Doesn't hurt us. What does hurt us? Well, it's when you cross into that ionizing radiation threshold up at the top of UV, where you can start to get a sunburn. And then you take it from there. X-rays, gamma rays, everything else that is definitely harmful to human tissue. And that's just simply not where cell phone signals are in the spectrum.
Absolutely. And folks, I recommend that episode of Skeptoid. And now, of course, subscriber, non-subscriber, I can recommend the whole back catalogue of Skeptoid. Now, over the years and years and years and years and years and years that you've been doing this, Brian, are there any standout episodes that for you personally keep ringing true, or you keep coming back to, or people comment on?
Yeah, it goes all the way back to the earliest year or two of Skeptoid. There is a 2-part series on logical fallacies. Those are the ones that have, I think, by far the longest legs that people still refer back to and listen to and download. And I know that a lot of teachers print out the transcript pages and hand them out to classrooms and everything. So yeah, the two episodes on logical fallacies, those are always the go-to. And then another one that I've heard, we've had really good response to this on social media, by the way. Everyone's been saying, "Oh, that's so wonderful and awesome of you." I'm saying, yeah, it was pretty easy to do. but the one thing people say, I want to go back and I want to listen to the one on reverse speech. I think the title of the episode is "When People Talk Backwards." Yeah. And I mean, I thought that subject was just, we're going to play a couple of lines from popular rock songs backwards and see what they sound like. That is so just barely the tip of the iceberg into how deep this goes. The basic claim that some of these people believe is that when we speak, our brains are saying what we really think in reverse. So if anytime I say anything, I'm probably lying or whatever, but if you played it backwards, you'd hear what I'm actually honestly intending. That would require some incredible brain power.
Wouldn't it just? And that's, of course, a classic example of audio pareidolia.
And there's a lot of examples of that in that episode, a lot of really fun little audio clips that make that one a lot of fun. So I think that's why that one's a perennial fan favorite.
Folks, this is what you can do if you're stuck at home now, like a lot of us are. Even the Skeptic Zone cats and I are held up here in the office in the studio. You can listen to the whole back catalogue of Skeptoid. Brian, where do they go?
Just come to Skeptoid.com and search for whatever conceivable conspiracy theory, urban legend, paranormal claim, ghost story, whatever it is, alternative medicine scheme. They're all in there. And I hope that they help you pass the time if you, like so many of us, are stuck at home.
Thank you very much, Brian Dunning, for doing this. Again, it's a wonderful resource for me personally, as I've said many times before. If I'm ever asked to comment about some paranormal or spooky thing, my first port of call is always to go to Skeptoid to see what Brian Dunning has had to say on the issue. Brian, stay well. Sending my regards to you and your whole family up there in Bend. It's not a bad place to be stuck, I guess.
No, it's okay, except that we can't go to the pubs, so that's half the benefit of being here.
Oh, I was going to come visit, but I've just changed my mind. Oh, well. So, Brian, it's great that you've made all those episodes available for everybody, but for now, Brian Dunning, thank you very much.
Thank you for helping us get the word out.
Hey, Max Fun listeners. Have you been listening to Max Fun for a while and you've just been wondering, where's the new Flat Earth podcast I keep hearing about?
Well, here it is. We give you all the facts on NASA's lies and how we know that the Earth is actually flat. Just kidding. This is Ono, Ross, and Carrie, and we join fringe religious groups. We undergo alternative medical treatments.
And we hang out with people like 9/11 truthers, flat earthers. We find out, why do people believe strange things?
We join them, and we tell you all about it. We have a lot of fun. We make a lot of friends.
Yeah, we do. We joined the Mormons. We joined the Scientologists. We got acupunctured. We got fire cupped. We got ear kindled. We've done it all, and we're going to keep doing it all. Why don't you check out Ono, Ross, and Carrie at MaximumFun.org?
Here's an update from our friends at the Good Thinking Society in the UK. March 2020, Good Thinking's Judicial Review concluded with strict conditions placed on the Society of Homeopaths. As many of our supporters will know, the Professional Standards Authority has imposed strict conditions on the Society of Homeopaths as part of their most recent annual accreditation of the homeopathic membership organisation as an accredited voluntary register. These conditions include forbidding registrants of the Society of Homeopaths from practicing cease therapy, that's CEASE therapy, an ineffective autism cure aimed at children, which is based on anti-vaccination misinformation, and from making any claims regarding vaccination. We at the Good Thinking Society welcome these conditions, having spent the last few years raising concerns over the Society of Homeopaths' unwillingness or inability to prevent their registrants from claiming to cure autism. In June 2019, we filed a judicial review challenging the PSA's 2019 reaccreditation of the Society of Homeopaths, given that the PSA had acknowledged that cease therapy was potentially harmful and that it conflicted with NHS advice regarding vaccinations against potentially life-threatening conditions. In that 2019 reaccreditation, the PSA did not require, or even recommend, that the Society of Homeopaths prevent their members from offering cease therapy. We challenged the decision because the measures recommended by the PSA in 2019 did not come close to mitigating the potential harms associated with cease therapy, despite there being evidence that the Society of Homeopath registrants continued to practice cease therapy. We also argued that the PSA had failed to ask the Society of Homeopaths how many of its registrants practiced cease therapy and failed to verify information provided to them, some of which we had found to be inaccurate, before coming to their decision. Further, we felt that the PSA had not properly taken account of the potential equality implications of its decision, given that cease therapy is aimed at autistic people and autistic children in particular. With that in mind, we are very pleased to see that strict conditions have now been placed on the Society of Homeopaths, binding them to take action to prevent their registrants from making autism cure claims or from spreading anti-vaccination misinformation. We are encouraged to see that the PSA have come to accept that nothing short of an outright ban on cease therapy is sufficient to protect the public, and they also took into account the equality implications of accrediting the Society of Homeopaths whilst its members practiced cease therapy. We are therefore happy to withdraw our legal challenge to the 2019 decision. However, while putting in place a ban on cease therapy is obviously a great step forward, any prohibition is meaningless unless it is adhered to, and disciplinary action is taken by the Society of Homeopaths against those registrants who ignore it. We will, therefore, be paying close attention over the coming year to ensure that registrants of the Society of Homeopaths do not continue to offer cease therapy or to act in breach of any of the other conditions imposed upon the Society by the PSA. If we do find registrants acting in breach, we will raise our concerns with the Society of Homeopaths and the PSA as necessary, as we did prior to the 2019 reaccreditation. We trust that this time our concerns will be taken seriously and that the need for further legal action can be avoided in the future. We'd like to offer our thanks to everyone who supported us on this project, which started over 3 years ago, and to Professor Steve Powis of the NHS and Carol Povey of the National Autistic Society for the statements they submitted in support of our claim. We would also like to give special thanks to Salima Bahani at Bindman's LLP and Jason Pobjoy and Holly Higgins at Blackstone Chambers for their invaluable legal counsel. We'd also like to thank Crowd Justice for coordinating our fundraising activities and to the 289 people who donated money back to our cause. We will be writing to them next week to explain the impact that their donation has made. Meanwhile, we invite our supporters to let us know if they find any instances of the Society of Homeopaths registrants offering cease therapy, offering dietary supplements, sharing anti-vaccination misinformation, or claiming to be able to cure any named conditions, which we will then be able to pass on. The Society of Homeopaths has 3 months to get its house in order to satisfy the PSA that it has complied with the conditions relating to cease therapy and vaccination. The PSA will then make an assessment as to whether the conditions have been met, and only if they have been met will the re-accreditation be granted. Evidence of dangerous misinformation or inappropriate claims made by the Society of Homeopaths registrants after 13 May 2020 will show that the conditions have not been met, which ought to trigger appropriate action by the PSA. And you can find that information for yourself by visiting Good Thinking at goodthinkingsociety.org, a link in this week's show notes. But the ongoing battle for sanity over homeopathy is, at this time, in this international time of crisis, it's just about as important as anything else, I guess, because of the fear that people will be given very bad advice regarding their health at the moment. Case in point is the serial offenders of Homeopathy Plus here in Australia, who are now, and not surprisingly, now putting it out there that there could possibly be a homeopathic treatment and prevention for COVID-19. And this is directly from one of their newsletters in their page. This is what it says. Late Sunday night, Sunday 15th of March 2020, I was sent an email with a link to a document which contained treatment reports and a remedy recommendation for COVID-19, the disease caused by the new coronavirus SARS-CoV-2. The following is a screen capture of that email. And it's something called the Other Song website, whatever that is. Dr. Sankaran, after his work in collaboration with a doctor in Eran on novel coronavirus, has suggested the following. Preventative. Camphora 1 ml, 4 pills twice daily, 2 days. Keep under the tongue until melt. Nothing but water 3 minutes before and after. With symptoms of infection, camphora 1 ml, 8 pills in 100 milliliters of water. 1 tablespoon 6 hourly for days until symptoms largely abate. Nothing but water 30 minutes before and after. The newsletter goes on to say, last night I was able to click on the link in the above email and read the document in full. Not so this morning. On clicking to read it again, this is what I was shown. And the next screen capture is Google Drive. Sorry, the file you have requested does not exist. A search around the internet also failed to find any trace of this particular document. This was unusual. It was as if it had been fully scrubbed from the internet during the hours I and others slept. For this reason, you may wish to capture this article and share it with others in case it too quickly disappears. Hello, conspiracy mindset. And it's interesting. I mean, to their way of thinking, anything like this simply validates. They don't need validation. They know what they think is right. This simply validates the conspiratorial mindset they have. It goes on, the following is what I remember reading the document. Case reports with symptoms were collected by an Iranian doctor working with a diagnosed COVID-19 patient in Iran. Those case reports were sent to an Indian homeopathic doctor, who based on the symptoms provided suggested a homeopathic remedy. Oh dear. If my memory serves me correctly, about 50 cases, 40, were involved. Information from approximately 8 of the cases, their symptoms and treatment responses, were all provided in detail in the document. Those given the remedy recovered much more quickly than expected from their exhaustion and collapse. Some were able to return to work within a week. And there is much more to this page. It simply goes on and on. But no surprises at all. Homeopathy Plus were the same organization taken to court about 4 or 5 years back for advocating their magic sugar water be used instead of vaccine for whooping cough, so that they would be spouting homeopathic cures or prevention for COVID-19 is just par for the course. Of course they would do it. If you thought that your system of treatment worked for everything, and I do mean everything, of course it would work for this current health crisis. And this will lead me to the last of the items in this little segment about bogus or fake cures, remedies, treatments for coronavirus going around the world at the moment. This is to do with something called Applied Kinesiology. Now, this is a quack modality of diagnosis. This is to do with muscle testing, muscle memory, the body's natural responses, messages from the universe, energetic healing, this sort of stuff. And until now, as I posted on Facebook, the society really, apart from the skeptics working away, sort of turned a blind eye to all this. You know, all those alternative medicine people doing what they do. This comes from an applied kinesiologist by the name of Rennie Zeller, who posted on Facebook a couple of days ago as I'm recording, so over the last weekend. Coronavirus checkups. If you're worried or suspect you're in danger of catching the virus, please phone me Monday to Thursday, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. I'll check, energetically, your respiratory system in depth, beliefs around catching the virus, and sabotages in relation to how it may affect you, whatever that means. $1 per minute. This is less than my normal $2.50 a minute. And this next bit is real. This is really written. The irony is off the scale. We need to stop the unnecessary worry and deal with what is real. Some people might be carriers of the virus, but many of you will not be. Or if you'd like to save your money, learn how to do kinesiology yourself. It's very easy. Here's a link that can help. And the link will take you to a video, which I'll explain in a moment. And that practice is under the banner of Holistic Health Practitioner. Now, the video in question has her sitting on a couch in a lovely setting and explaining how you can get messages, you can diagnose people, you can, by basically putting your thumb and forefinger and second finger together to make a little circle, placing another finger or two inside that and quickly moving them out to break the seal. Now, if you can break the seal, that means yes to your question. If you can't and your fingers are clasped tight, if you can't break the seal, that means no. I am not making this up. So presumably, people will be calling her and saying, can you tell me if I've got this coronavirus? She may or may not, she probably does, she's probably a true believer, does this finger test and diagnoses the person on the other end of the phone. Maybe, and we've got the screen captures, and this has been shared many times now, this screen cap. Maybe when all is done and dusted and the world is getting back to its feet, people like this can be prosecuted for offering fake virus checkups. I think we're going to be hearing more about this in the coming weeks, more bogus cures and practices and beliefs. And then we'll have the avalanche of conspiracy theories to deal with. Relevant links in this week's show notes.
Be Reasonable is the interview show from the Merseyside Skeptic Society, where each month I speak to someone about their fringe beliefs. Over the years, I've spoken to psychics, UFO believers, moon landing deniers, flat earthers, hollow earthers, and all manner of unusual conspiracy theorists. But I've also talked to AIDS denialists, white supremacists, gay conversion therapists. I even interviewed Jim Humble, the inventor of Miracle Mineral Supplement, a form of industrial bleach that he and his followers use to treat cancer and HIV. This isn't a debate show, and my aim isn't to win an argument. But when we listen to how people promote and justify the ideas that we disagree with, even the dangerous ones, I think we become much more effective at countering those ideas. If that sounds like something you'd be interested in, look for Be Reasonable on Apple Podcasts and everywhere else that podcasts live.
And now, a reading from the Book of Tim with Tim Mendham.
Hi, my name is Tim Mendham. I'm the Executive Officer of Australian Skeptics Inc. and I'm the editor of our magazine, The Skeptic. And this time I'm reading part 1 of a 3-part series on one of our major challenge tests that we undertook a few years ago to test the abilities of dowsers. That's diviners, people who use rods or whatever to find water. This appeared in The Skeptic magazine, June 2013, which is volume 33, number 2. Part 1 is covering the scene, and this was written by Ian Bryce, our challenge coordinator. The sun beat down relentlessly on a scorching 33-degree day. In the background, we could see wood-chopping competitors sweating it out in their navy singlets and riders jumping their horses around an obstacle course. The crowds of thousands enjoyed the many spectacles, from polished hot rods and spluttering antique engines to Iron Man or Woman events involving wheelbarrows and sandstone blocks. The kids enjoyed dripping ice creams, a jumping castle, and a water slide. It was the mighty Mitta muster. This seemed an unlikely setting for a challenge for the Skeptics' $100,000 prize for a demonstration of any event unknown to science. Mitta is a small town in northeastern Victoria, situated at the foothills of the Snowy Mountains on the junction of the Mitta River and Snowy Creek. It is about 80 kilometres southeast of Albury-Wodonga, and each year in March the muster attracts country folk from all over, bringing a good proportion of water diviners, water drillers, their families and believers. And so it was that the Borderline Skeptics, which was a group that was set up in that area, in conjunction with the Victorian Skeptics, organised their third dowsing challenge, the previous ones being held in 2001 and 2002. So this was a few years after those ones. One planned for 2003 didn't eventuate because of bushfires, something, of course, which the area is rather prone to, which also meant the cancellation of the whole muster itself. Australian Skeptics have held other divining tests, one in 1980 at our patron Dick Smith's initiative, which was the progenitor of the Skeptics, and one in 1989, which Ian Bryce organised, and your speaker now took a part in. The rules said electronic devices were not allowed, and Ian kept an eye out for any anomalies. There was no sign of cheating or disputes. The targets for diviners consisted of 20 bottles containing either river water or sand concealed in calico bags and placed randomly at pre-marked locations around a tennis court. As a control, each diviner first calibrated his/her equipment on visible bottles of each type and then on concealed but known samples. All final participants said their divining rods, or whatever tools they used, responded in these cases. Then they divined the 20 unknown samples, with an escort recording their pronouncements. About 40 people took the challenge, around half of whom were professionals calling themselves diviners or drilling bores as a business, and the others were casual visitors. After about an hour, we stopped the tests and revealed the bottles. Diviners were able to revisit the site, and many of them carefully redivined bottles on which they had failed. In the 1989 test, we uncovered the bottles in real time while the diviner was demonstrating a positive response, and it was revealing to see the rod, once dipping solidly, start to hesitate and then waver to nothing. This showed conclusively that the rods respond to the diviner's expectations rather than the actual water. Each diviner's score was tallied, and Ian asked many how they went and perhaps why they failed. Finally, the bottles were randomised again, and the next round commenced. The Dowsers were an interesting crew. Most were from northern Victoria or southern New South Wales. One said he is from the west. I asked, did he mean Perth? No, near Wodonga, well, which is a few kilometres away. Well, it's all relative. One from Bendigo had participated in the 2001 test at Mitta. A husband and wife team from a drilling company competed. The husband hoped to do well, but did average. The wife just hoped to beat her husband, which she achieved. A family with a son and a daughter also competed. Their business clearly relied on divining, and they regarded this as an important test. The daughter scored 13, 15 and 13, above average, but unfortunately within the range of chance alone. One entrant let his 2-year-old son, perched on his shoulders, pick the samples. Asked water or sand. His first 17 were all water, by which time he wondered if perhaps the child was thirsty or had need of a bathroom. Each skeptic also had a go. Ian's forked stick did not respond at all on its own, so at each sample Ian had to make a conscious decision and bias it accordingly. He scored 11. That's out of 20, by the way. As for implements, the serious diviners brought their own, mainly bent rods or wires of steel, aluminium or brass. One had an intricate pattern fastened to his rod like an antenna. Another preferred pendulums, including a cricket ball on a string. We provided a range of wires and forked branches for casuals. The physics of dowsing is interesting. Diviners typically hold a bent wire in neutral equilibrium with a very low friction grip or even in a loose tube so that any tiny disturbance will turn it. Even so, movements of their hands are often visible before the rod swings, supporting the idiomotor reaction theory. A pendulum is in the same category. A forked stick is held under stress so that it is in unstable equilibrium, and even random or chaotic stimuli will affect it. When results were revealed, the histogram of 79 runs showed an approximate bell-shaped curve, as expected by chance. The average score was 9.85 out of 20, very close to the 10 expected by chance alone. None reached the 18 set as a potential success, which would give the right to a more careful test at a later date for the prize money. Ian made a point of asking how they expected to fare at various stages. Most entrants at the start expected to do well, and after their run were equally confident, e.g. spot on. When the results were revealed, they were clearly disappointed, and excuses often appeared. Most opted for a second or third try, where possible, in the hope of doing better. Most, however, felt it was a reasonably fair test. In summary, it was a very successful event. Most diviners were complimentary and enjoyed the friendly atmosphere. Excuses aside, they all accepted the results, showing their performance was no better than chance. Many skeptics and locals contributed to the success, but special thanks are due to the Borderline Skeptics. And that organisation unfortunately doesn't exist anymore, but that's the nature of skeptical groups. They come and go. So that's the first part of Divining at Mitta, covering the scene. That's from The Skeptic, June 2013, Volume 33, Number 2. And next week we'll be looking at Part 2 of this Divining at Mitta, looking at the tests themselves and how they were undertaken and how they went. And all issues of The Skeptic, apart from the last 4, can be downloaded from our website, www.skeptics.com.au, for free. Just go to the tag magazine and scroll down and you'll see 39 years worth of magazines for you to have a look at no charge.
Hey, fellow skeptics.
Ben Radford here,
with Celestia Ward,
your friendly host of Squaring the Strange,
a podcast that looks at topics ranging from legends, panics, and cryptids
to media myths, psychology, and folklore,
breaking things down and picking things apart.
As we skeptics do.
We bring a few different perspectives on things.
Celestia, for example, is a witty cartoonist.
And Ben is a brilliant writer and longtime skeptical investigator.
We don't always agree,
but we have fun trying.
And we learn new things.
Join us for new topics every week or two.
Or browse our backlog of evergreen episodes.
Available on iTunes and all your podcast feeding troughs.
Squaring the Strange.
Take care, strangers.
Bye-bye.
here's Maynard's spooky action at a distance.
Oh, look, we're out here in the foyer, and somebody I've been bumping into a few times this weekend is...
Catherine.
Catherine, and you've got a bit of a story about, oh, look, is that your daughter over there looking a bit, what's Mum up to now? I hope you're not... Yeah, has your mum been embarrassing you this weekend?
Just say yes.
That's good, that's all right. So it's good to be polite.
This is Clara.
Hi, Clara, good to meet you.
So before I had kids, I was going to a chiropractor and doing all that stuff.
And what was that for? General health or something with your back? Oh, right, yeah.
Lower back, yeah. So I've had a lot of back problems. And the chiropractor actually helped because he mobilised the joints a bit, and that's kind of what I needed at the time. Later on, I had a spinal fusion and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So, yeah. He had a naturopath there. He had, did all that kind of stuff. And one day he literally got on his knees and begged me to not vaccinate my future children, because I hadn't had children at that point. And he was absolutely adamant, do not vaccinate your children. And he had he showed me the graph where if you take it out of context, it looks like other reasons are the reasons for incidence of diseases coming down. Yeah, that it's sanitation and everything.
Well, it's the one that starts in 1940 or something, isn't it?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. So it's very misleading. But that was right outside his area of expertise. And it's only now when I look back, I think, wow, that was pretty full on.
Yes, and you weren't planning to have kids at that time or anything, so he was just doing that to patients that may potentially one day have kids, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I know.
Yeah. And you're pretty healthy, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the correct answer. Yeah, she looks great.
She's fully vaccinated. Actually, both my kids got chickenpox last year. They were both vaccinated, but it meant that they didn't have as serious a case, thank goodness.
All right.
A friend of hers got it twice, and I got the flu this year. It was, they did a swab and everything, but I had been vaccinated, so it wasn't as bad as it could have been.
Oh, so it was a different strain. Is that what happened?
It was one of the strains. It was just that I just got a weakened sort of reaction to it, not the full-on reaction, which is really good because I did once have the flu, which was you just want to die. It's awful, but I survived this reasonably well.
And actually hanging out with other mothers when you now have a kid, are any of them like not vaccinating, or have they got a child that is perhaps a little bit different and they blame it on the vaccine at all?
I haven't had any blaming on the vaccine. I've got quite a few friends who have kids with autism or they're on the spectrum, and they get really narky when people try and say it's something to do with vaccines or nutrition or something or other. But there are a lot of parents who are into things that I would consider not
evidence-based.
Not evidence-based, yeah, we'll put it that way. Yeah. So I bite my tongue quite often. Or I'll just say a few little things, or I'll just kind of just walk away. But it's one of those things where you don't want to sabotage the friendship.
That's right, yeah.
But they're coming from a completely different place to you, and you just got to kind of pick your moments and pick your battles. And
if there are people out there that have got friends like that, what's your advice? Just keep away from it, or just how subtle have you got to be?
Pretty subtle. Depends on how much they know about you. I don't think these people, they know that I love science and that kind of thing. I don't think they know where I am today at the Skepticon. I don't know, it's like anything. You're not just talking to them, you're talking to the people who might be listening, and you just sow little seeds of questioning, ask them questions, don't try and tell them anything. Like one of the talks yesterday, you can't change someone's view when it's so embedded in who they are as a person. If you're challenging that, you're challenging them as a person, not just one particular issue.
I've just opened the soundproof booth here where I'm here with Eran. And look, Eran, what do you make? You've been to a lot of skeptical events. How does this weekend in Melbourne stack up? I like the echo in here. Hello. Anyway, yes.
Hello.
Yes. So how's it stack up?
I think it's great. I think it's a very enthusiastic audience and a fantastic mix of speakers.
Very good mix. I enjoyed Joe Thornley on cults. Of course, the SGU are as good as they always are.
I really like the fact that, first of all, I've enjoyed pretty much all the speakers. I think what's great about a skeptical event is when it doesn't focus on just skepticism. One of the things that marks the skeptical movement is that people are interested in all kinds of different things, and to create the right mix to make sure that everybody's interested throughout the weekend. And of course, there could be something that you may be a little bit less interested in or more interested in. That's really important, and I think they've done a wonderful job here of creating the right mix. But also, the speakers have been great. I don't think there's been any flops. And, most conventions have one or two speakers who are just not as good in terms of how outgoing they are, how well they project themselves. So it's great. It's really a fantastic job, and it's really great. I congratulate the Melbourne Skeptics for that.
Well, the common area upstairs, downstairs from the theatre is just empty now. We've got people packing things away, and it's sort of a sad thing whenever it gets packed. It's relief that it's over, but it's a bit of a sad thing whenever things have to get packed up, isn't it?
It certainly is. It is, but it's been a good convention, so that's the important thing.
It's been look, everyone's saying great things down there. Particularly said, "Did you see that person cleaning the coffee machine?"
Oh, get over it.
Oh, and here's a troublemaker. I'll just have a chat to him. Now, of course, also that. He goes with the coffee machine here. Now, are you with these troublemakers? Right. Oh, right. Yeah. Now, I hope you got a good talking to for that.
I did. We're actually just off to have a fist fight now, I think.
Oh, good. Look, yes, and how do you feel when you have people celebrating your name on T-shirts like that?
It's all in good fun. I love it. I love it.
Who the fist is Bob Novella, it says. It's fantastic for the family viewers out there. And that's been about the most scandal that's been here all weekend. A bit disappointed, really. Normally there's something. Someone gets cancel culture goes on, but no, the T-shirt's the best we could get.
Well, I think I heard you didn't do anything this time, Maynard, so...
No, not this time. I was too busy talking to people. And how's the SGU now that you've done all your performances?
Sorry?
How was the show? Did the shows go well?
The show, they all went wonderfully. A lot of fun, a lot of laughing.
A lot of stuff that doesn't make it to the final edit. About how much normally gets cut out of the live show when it goes to air?
A live show, we have to be kind of on point and efficient for the live show, but not that much. But there's much more cut for when we record from home, because we can record for 3 hours, and a lot of that's cut. So we cut things that I can't even talk about because I'm contractually obligated not to mention it.
Look, it's the end of the weekend. We've got Mr. Conspiracy of One. You're about to be sent back up to behind the banana curtain.
Oh, yes. I'm a cane toad.
And have you enjoyed this skeptical conference? And you've been to a few other ones, haven't you?
This is actually my first, but I've loved it.
Wow.
Welcome.
And look, how was it performing to a room where people are talking and then looking and then talking? It must have been an odd dynamic for you as a performer.
Not as a musician. I've dealt with that quite a lot.
Okay.
To a room full of skeptics who are one of my target audiences, it was a bit different. But I loved it. It's great.
Oh, great. And what's been your favourite thing all weekend here? What did the talk you go, man, that was good?
As far as talks go?
Yeah.
There have been too many good ones of all different topics, I suppose. But I think the thing that I've loved the most out of the whole weekend has just been the people. Meeting
like-minded people.
Like-minded people who are good humans and getting to know them.
Have you got anything that might have inspired you to write anything new? Have you got any inspiration for any more creativity from the weekend?
Probably. I'll have to check the notes in my phone. I usually have an idea, write it down, and then go, I'll look at that later.
Okay, and we can find Conspiracy of One at
www.conspiracyofonesolo.com.
Thank you for listening to the Skeptic Zone. Now, normally, when I'm recording the Skeptic Zone and planes fly overhead, I stop the recording or I just start it again or do whatever. But right now, what's that? I don't know if you can hear that out the studio window. It's a plane. It's one of the signs of the time. As of 4 or 5, 6 days ago, the air traffic going over the studio has decreased remarkably, or markedly. And now it's, wow, there's a plane going overhead. it's just one of the strange things I could never expect at this time, that I would actually enjoy hearing a plane going overhead, because as you all know, the air traffic around the world has been dramatically decreased. Now, a very heartfelt thanks to my Patreons and subscribers via PayPal and Patreon, of course, at skepticzone.tv. Suffice it to say that like many people, like thousands of people, of course, around the world, I too have lost a lot of our other income owing to the huge downturn now in work in the entertainment field. So now more than ever, the Skeptic Zone absolutely relies on listeners just like you. And the good news is if you subscribe with Patreon in US dollars, so if you're in the United States and you think it's worthy to chip in to help, your dollar is almost worth double in Australia. So people who maybe contribute with $5 a month, that $5 magically turns into almost $8 something or other by the time of the conversion, because our dollar is sinking against the US currency. So I hope you consider that this show and other skeptical podcasts, my colleagues around the world, Skeptoid, Squaring the Strange, the ESP, Skeptics with a K, the SGU, of course, the Geologic podcast, are worthy of your support at this time. And not forgetting Maynard's podcast at maynard.com.au. But for this week, this is Richard Saunders signing off from Sydney, Australia. You've been listening to the Skeptic Zone podcast. Please visit our website at www.skepticzone.tv for show notes, contacts, and to access the back catalogue of episodes going back to 2008. You can follow the Skeptic Zone podcast on Twitter at Skeptic Zone, visit our Facebook page, or leave a review on iTunes. You can also support the Skeptic Zone via Patreon or PayPal. The Skeptic Zone podcast is an independent production. The views and opinions expressed on the Skeptic Zone are not necessarily those of Australian Skeptics or any other skeptical organisation. Okay, this is the Book of Tim, and
I'm going to just do a slightly thing that I'd like to do first, okay? Mm-hmm. I'm feeling a bit peckish, so I think I might go downstairs and see what's in the fridge. Okay, let's have a look inside the fridge. Ooh, 2 frozen cats on a stick. I'd wonder where they got to. I might have one now, and I might have one later on. In the meantime, please sit back and enjoy the Skeptic Zone.
What was that for?
I don't know. You were about going downstairs and getting food.
2 cats? The things I have to put up.
I know. Yeah, you have to sort of, make the artist feel, it's wanted, right? You have to, patronise the artist.
The talent.
The what?
The talent.
The talent, right? Sorry, the product.
The product. No, in this case, you're the talent. Believe me. When I turn up sometimes on the TV and the stuff, it's is the talent here? Yeah, here he is.
Yeah, the talent. Yeah.
Talent. Thank you.
Try not that one.
Yeah, right.
Okay.